chapter in Centre versus Judiciary, the government is now mulling to remove CGI from a poll panel that regulates the appointment, conditions of service and term of office of the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners and the procedure for transaction of business by the Election Commission. In this regard, Union Minister of Law and Justice Arjun Ram Meghwal is set to introduce a Chief Election Commissioner appointment bill in the Rajya Sabha today. In March, a 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court had said the appointments will be made by a 3-member panel that will include the CJI, this until a law is made by the Parliament. Delhi CM Arvind Kejriwal called this the weakening of democracy and claimed that the Prime Minister does not believe in the Supreme Court of the country. MPs from various opposition parties have also criticized the bill.
Here in this very devious bill, what they've done is they've sought to replace the Chief Justice with a cabinet member chosen from the Union Cabinet. The second part of it, and I'm going to read out the other devious part, they've not only replaced the Chief Justice, Clause 7.2 says the appointment of Chief Election Commissioners and other election commissioners shall not be invalid merely by reason of any vacancy in or defect in the constitution of the Select Committee, which means that if the Select Committee does not have the leader of the opposition, the Prime Minister and the Union Cabinet Minister still go ahead despite there being a vacancy. Yes. If there is a defect, the appointment cannot be overruled. So what's the point of a selection committee when you say that any defect in the selection committee or any vacancy will not stop the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner?
It looks very ridiculous because the highest body are thinking mind. Let me say objectively. Supreme Court is one which judiciously thinks of matters. It has suggested to you one thing, and it has suggested you such an independent body of 3 people, and you remove CJI out of it and put a cabinet minister nominated by the Prime Minister. That means the 3-member panel will have 2 people from the government and 1 from the others. Then why you have the Election Commission at all? Let one of the cabinet ministers be the chairman.
Their intention is to nullify the judgment of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has given certain yardsticks as to how the Chief Election Commissioner has to be appointed. And while holding these elections, the neutrality is expected from the Chief Election Commissioner. He can't be an agent or a person nominated by the central government. That is the pith and substance of the entire issue. The appointment will be made by the 3-member committee consisting of the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition and one more minister from their side. So therefore, the Leader of Opposition is reduced to nothing.
I haven't had a chance to look at the bill, but certainly it does seem to be rather unusual. We will have to see in what form we take it up and whether we object, because the fact is that the Chief Justice, his participation in the exercise is part of what guarantees the independence of the selection process.
This is, of course, a fresh chapter in the Centre versus Judiciary row. The government, of course, bringing about this bill which seeks to ensure that the CGI is not part of the panel that regulates the appointment, conditions of service and term of office of the Chief Election Commissioner and also election commissioners. It'll be very interesting to see what the government's response on this is. Joining me right now is my colleague Aishwarya. Aishwarya, clearly there, the government tabling this bill, going ahead with it, despite the opposition not being too happy about it. The opposition, in fact, is going ahead and saying that this, in fact, is resulting in the weakening of the democracy.
Well, certainly the opposition has stated that this is something that reflects that the government doesn't believe in our judicial system, in our legislative system, and therefore the reason perhaps those decisions, those orders that does not go in the favor of the government, they pass on the ordinance, they bring in the bill and they make it a law. Certainly, if we talk about the rules, then in the order which was passed in March 2023 by Supreme Court 5 judges panel, it was stated that it can be overruled by bringing a law in the parliament, and that's what the government did. Remember, in the judgment that came out in March 2023, it was stated earlier that the appointment of the Chief Election Commission and Commissioner, and also the members of the Election Commission can be done by three-member panel, which earlier included Prime Minister, leader of opposition. In case he is not available, then the leader of the largest single party of the opposition, or else the third one would be the CGI. Now, in this particular bill, the CGI, in place of CGI, there would be one of the cabinet minister appointed by the Prime Minister, and therefore the opposition clearly had been stating that the thing that always the government talks about independency of the judiciary and independency of the election commission, I beg your pardon, would be harmed. Certainly, it would be the government who will decide who will be the ECI, and this comes just before the 2024 mega poll. So clearly, it is just not Arvind Kejriwal, one of the opposition party leaders, but also from the INDIA. Several of the other leaders have opposed this bill, but the government went forward today. Arjun Ram Meghwal, Law Minister of a country, had introduced this bill in the Rajya Sabha, and now it will go on for further voting and discussion. In Lok Sabha, it has already been passed amid of the ruckus in the lower house. On July 28th, it was passed, and that happened when the entire opposition walked out. One thing is very ironical in this, that in Lok Sabha, it was the entire opposition who walked out, and they were not present when the bill was passed. And at that point of time, there was no, there was no one to oppose this bill. But now, when it has come into Rajya Sabha, several opposition leaders are opposing this bill and saying that this is kind of dictatorship by the government. Those bills, those judgments that the government doesn't like, they bring in ordinance and or a bill to make that a law, and that's what is happening with the bill that concerns with the appointments of the Chief Election Commissioner and the members of the EC.
Absolutely, Aishwarya. Thanks a lot for all of that information. Very interesting take there by the opposition. And in fact, the Supreme Court had also said something similar. They had said that if all the decisions with regards to electing the Chief Election Commissioner are taken by the executive, it is something that wouldn't really be that fair. We'll keep a track on all the latest